Guys, welcome. We've got Agent Legend with us, Steve. We've got my buddy, best friend for like 1,000 years here, Nick Baldwin. If you don't know who he is, we run this shit together. So here we go. Steve,
We run this shit.
dude, we kind of do, buddy. We kind of with a whole bunch of help, okay? With a whole bunch of help.
Yeah. We don't really run it.
We don't run it. We pretend to run it. How's that? Uh, Steve sent out a great email. And if you want to take a look at it, it's in Lab Coat Agents. Just type in search Steve Gerten or go to my main page. I posted it there too. Steve, you sent out this email about data and how big companies like Zillow, Compass, and we're talking real estate specific. Obviously, we can go outside of real estate too, but specifically real estate. They've got this need for data because they understand the data play. And before we get there, your company is allowing agents, teams, brokerages to be able to also monetize data in a similar fashion. You're evening out the playing field. But first, explain to us why you think Compass is trying to pick up these legacy brands, right? Because we're seeing this happen. They'll become the largest real estate company by agent count. It's a massive big play. And Zillow's always going after data and buying companies, not only Follow Up Boss, but all these other companies as well. What's the play? What are we missing?
Yeah, I don't think people are missing anything. It's more taking back the ownership of that information. And we're in the business and we have a real estate team here in Minneapolis where you're kind of giving away that data. And we look to near term, where I think the title of even this session is like 98% of your contacts are wasted. And the goal is that people start viewing their database as more of an asset moving forward, because ultimately, and this is more my background, is like, what's the exit plan for anybody's business? We all get put in the ground. And so as you look at what has tangible value, every lead, every contact is a consumer or a household in your database. And that information is valuable to not just a real estate company in the forms of buying and selling of real estate, but look at all of the other transactions that take place at the home ownership level. Moving companies, HVAC companies, title, mortgage, all those other transactions that can take place. And we're all working our butt off with time and money. So we're out there shaking hands and kissing babies. And hopefully, if you don't already have a CRM, get one, but you're centralizing that information somewhere. And every little data point is worth something. It can be pennies, or it can be worth multiple hundreds and thousands of dollars as you accumulate those data points. And a lot of the folks I think that are tuning into this are spending a lot of freaking money generating leads. So I'm spending money. What's my cost per lead? And we look at the near term of just, hey, how do we convert those leads? But we want to start getting people's mindset in the form of like, turn the database into a finely tuned, predictable, scalable, and transferable engine for your company, or think about who wants that database in the future. And that's what we're really here to drill down.
You said transferable. Nick and I interviewed Nick on LCA podcast. Stacy, what was her last name? She's your friend. Okay, remember in the conversation you and I had with Stacy, she mentioned one of the things that she's excited for 2026 was creating this referral opportunity where she takes agents' databases and then makes it part of her own company.
It's when an agent on her team retires. I think it's called the legacy something or other. She calls it legacy. So when an agent on her team retires, they'll take that agent's SOI, and that agent can essentially have residual income forever, as long as someone in that database or someone that knows someone in that database continues to buy or sell.
So the key there, what we want to get to is like, we live in a world of big data. Consumer data in the US is just readily available for us. And getting your hands on that data used to be cost prohibitive. It's not anymore. It is readily available. And so if you understand the who in your database and not just viewing people as contacts in a spreadsheet, Bill Smith with this number and email, but if you know that Bill Smith makes $150,000 a year, he has 2 kids, he loves the Cowboys, right? Those little data points are incredibly valuable. And we kind of have this one track mind of like, we're hamsters on a wheel. I'm only as good as my last deal. But if you really harvest that information, sometimes we make it more complex than it really has to be. But just think about who wants to get their hands on that information. So when you talk about the handcuffs of real estate
Yeah.
agents, that's how a lot of people exit. They just say, "Hey, I have referrals for you, and I'm gonna twilight myself and give me a cut of the deals." No, you should be able to hand over a stream of contacts that just consistently show up for whoever is going to acquire them, and they should pay you 5 times, 6 times the value of that asset. And
Mhm.
that's how really great businesses transact. And we always kind of think that the larger companies can do that. Well, no, we now at Agent Legend, we manage nearly 4.5 million contacts for our clients. Think about that breadth. And so the
That's
insights that we
crazy.
can provide to them, and you're seeing a lot more of this, is the insights. Those should direct the daily operations of our clients in terms of the revenue driving that they're doing. But hey, what about the lifetime value of every prospect and developing a system that
Mhm.
can not only sell them a home, but refer them to a moving company along the way, and these other little transactions that come away with it. So I think we're pulling up some things. What we wanted, what I had our team kind of dissect a little bit is the economics, or a little bit behind the Compass deal, and like what
Mhm.
we are really just fine tuned. You typically, without a publicly traded company, you can't understand like what did somebody pay for this asset. But in the
Yeah.
case of Anywhere Brands and Compass, it's publicly available. And so these first 2 slides, you saw 4.3 million contacts under management.
Yep.
And we see, just based on the stages, so we connect directly into our clients' databases, and we're helping them segment that database and we're enriching it, right?
Yep.
And then that dictates how we go to market with the communications and prospecting materials that we provide them. But we see under a 2% conversion rate overall, right? And this can be,
Okay.
hey, maybe you got to update your data. That's not a new stat. I think a lot of people know about that stat, but we're looking at conversion in the form of just, if we go back to that slide, the 2% conversion is like, I want people's mindset. We want people's mindset to also understand, would a plumbing company also find value in my contacts in my database? How can I shift some
Yeah.
of my mindset to outside of my agents always saying, I got a guy.
Mm.
Let me connect you in a text message with that guy. We live in a world where we know their pain. Think about us as real estate professionals. We think about how expensive lead generation has become. No, there's no better lead than that warm handoff to a partner of yours. And so how do you set up an ecosystem that on your P&L now becomes a revenue driver for you? So you don't look at poor conversion and your margin on converting leads is so low. Well, no, you can find other really great opportunities to monetize that contact that you paid money for. And so that was the purpose a little bit behind kind of teeing this up. But if you go to the next slide, I want to break down what we're continuing to just dive into within our system is to kind of peel back the layers of the onion regarding the pending transaction with Compass and Anywhere. So the total value that Compass is currently, perceived to be under contract for $4.2 billion, massive number.
Mhm.
And what we find is very telling, and I think Tristan and Nick, we went through this before, is like, look at what they're actually buying, right? Like, are they buying these name brands and the systems that they have, or are they buying the content creation that comes along with them? Are they buying the consumer information that comes along with them, knowing, if you open up their K1s and you can see their investment documents publicly available, look at how they're looking at diversifying revenue streams. And so agents are a revenue stream, the buy sell is a revenue stream, but there's all these different ancillary revenue streams for the business. And what's most profitable typically tends to be the third or fourth engagements with these people. So if you continue along here, we break it down as to what they actually, so this is for anybody that is in acquisition mode, right? We work with teams that are like, I want to expand my reach. And so you can do that organically. kind of go to a market and recruit on your own and build a business that way. Or you can go out and acquire, somebody that may be on the latter stages, or perhaps ingesting their database into your system. But at the end of it, they acquired like 300,000 new agents with this acquisition. And so that equates to like $14,000 per agent, which is just mind blowing. When you get down to that number, it's like, holy cow, that seems like pennies on the dollar on the surface. And that in its own right is like, okay, now we're getting a little bit deeper. Okay, $14,000 per agent. If you go to the next slide, look at what they're potentially getting. And these are this is an estimate, right? Assuming at least 5,000 contacts in a database, we arrive at that number just based off what we see on average for each one of our customers. They typically we have some that have over 500,000 contacts in their database. They're marketing powerhouses. We have others that they're a couple hundred, but in the median is about 5,000 consumers, right? These are people. And so I'm acquiring people. And with those people, if it's in a database, most of it isn't. So think about that for a second. If it's just in your phone or in your head, you're behind, and you need to centralize it, because that is what somebody, when they are interested in what you have, they're going to look at, like, how rich is the information and what can I do with that information? We'll do another video as to why we acquired Agent Legend. Like, it's a very similar methodology around the insights and data that the company was sitting on. And we always get fixated on the end deliverable. But now let's look at 1.5 billion consumers. Now get down to the next one. And this is like, we all kind of get fixated on cost per lead, but like under $3 cost per lead data. So that is right there. We look at, like, we're fixated on, I got to buy this, I'm buying either households in my farm. But what if that farm was connected to a Sotheby's agent that is in your ecosystem, and you can unlock and give them the power? Compass, right? How does Compass now build the ecosystem to power that agent to get more out of? They just bought sub $3 cost per lead, which for us, we're still digging and we're still finding out, but it's just fascinating. So for those that are watching this, take $2.80, go into your database, pull up whatever you're using, Lofty, Follow Up Boss, and just do the math really quick. And you can get a benchmark based on a comp, right? This is a comp. So that's a way that you can just get, and it all depends on how quality your information is. So keep that in mind as well. So if you don't have your database cleaned up, highly recommend you do that. Get it segmented, have it so that if anybody wanted your playbook, you could just get an NDA in place first and foremost, but hand it over and say, here's how we do what we do. We know more about our local market and our consumers than anybody else will. So sub $3 cost per lead. And I mentioned this early on. So the rest of this, we don't need to go too much in depth, but I want to take people through just to get to that $2.80, $4.2 billion purchase price. And you'll see there, if you actually dig, they're using a combination of cash and a lot of debt. So if you were actually just looking at how much cash they're paying, it's even lower. It's going to be closer to like $2, I think, once you strip out the $2 billion worth of assumed debt that they're taking on. So that's a different conversation. But this is now more of, for the mindset shift of, big data is available. How can you create in your database a way for anybody and to provide more value? At the end of the day, this is all about the consumer. But the more you know about the consumers in your database, this is just how we help our customers visualize this, as most people are fixated on, I just want to know who's going to buy or sell. Great. We're fixated on that, but there's got to be a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth opportunity. How much income do these people make? Are they having children? Are they, did they just accept a job offer somewhere else and are looking for a new place? Do they need a moving company? And now how do you start parlaying those to, again, increase the lifetime value? Because if you're only fixated on customer acquisition, that's why margins are sub 10%. Most companies, when we take a peek, right? You probably know this better than we do, is like, the margins are insanely low. Well, that's because we're just focused on acquiring customers, and that business, that's bad business. Most of the best brands in the world, the best companies in the world understand lifetime value is where the profit is unlocked. And so first thing, how do we make sure that you can get that second and third home purchase or sale, right? Done. That's easy. But I always keep going back to think about the other downstream vendors that would want access. And if you can start thinking about that, now pencil out the math to say that's $150 cost per lead for that. And I have a whole, 75 people in that smart list in my system who would want access to that. And those that are business owners in their own right know that there's value in that, and that can pay for critical operations within your business as well.
Got it. There we go.
And then the rest of this is just, guys, it's they're buying. Some of this is they're buying. They're not buying the network of agents. They're buying the relationship funnels that come along with it. It's like we already talked about. Is the agents are the conduit to the first transaction, absolutely, but mortgage, title, you know the businesses. There's companies out there that we work with. They have vertical integration. Compass is doing it with agents and brokerages. Zillow is kind of doing it with more of the tech stack and the housing super app. They're buying those funnels of like front line of defense, sub $2.80 cost per lead. And now look at what they have the ability to do with the downstream vendors that they can partner with as well.
So you're telling us instead of these companies coming in and offering all of these different ancillary items to your clients, you're saying, hey, why don't you just enrich your own data and make all of those connections and either deepen your relationships with title, insurance, solar, or create some type of a reciprocation that's illegal, obviously, right?
Yeah.
We don't want to have a RESPA violation like Zillow's class action lawsuit in Seattle. But but we want to keep everything within these guidelines. But I think you're allowing us, like I said at the beginning, to even out the playing field, man.
Yeah. It's also, I want people, I think everybody should be, we're all business owners. Like you own a business, and instead of it being Steve Gerten real estate, start thinking about who would want what you're building day in and day out. We work tirelessly for the income generation, but ultimately there's got to be the harvesting of all your hard work. And so we work our butts off to create teams, or we have operations. And you're always looking for these little levers to increase margin in your business, giving you more time back, but also new ways in which to increase profitability. And that is at the core. That's what we are we are solely focused on that. My background was in buying and selling businesses. Even before that, it was working at Target Corporate here in Minneapolis. And I was part of the company that was in charge of guest insights. If you guys know the story about the dad who got a coupon about a pregnancy test during Valentine's Day, if that rings a bell for anybody, go to the chat. But we were the conduit to that. We were using guest insights, and we notified the parents via a coupon that spat out that, hey, maybe their household may have wanted a pregnancy test. Not great for us. That's why you don't see those coupon machines in Target anymore. But I mention that because we look at how do we increase trips and frequency in that example. I encourage everybody who watches this to have that mindset. We're planning for 2026. How do you increase trips and frequency in your database?
So you're telling me, like, when I go to Barnes and Nobles and I buy a book, they're always trying to give me a discount for a cookie or something in their bakery thing, but they have it all wrong. They should be looking at the insights, and they should be like, oh, Tristan loves journals and pens. We should give him a discount on journals and pens.
Look at it this way. The best example of that, if you're going to talk about Barnes and Noble, is CVS.
Yep.
The CVS receipt is always a mile long, but it's always based on things that you regularly buy with the coupons.
Yeah, they got to get you to come to CVS to buy that product again. Versus, I always use the Amazon example. Is think how great Amazon is with, hey, you bought a toothbrush. You might also like this, and it's relevant, right? You might also like this. Know that Amazon is an example of, they know that every transaction that flows through their system, they're analyzing it, and you should be analyzing is to understand the best indication of the future behavior is what happened in the past. So if I'm looking at if I'm in the real estate profession, if I'm looking at how do I grow my business, well, let's look back at who we actually have transacted with. Let's go find more of those people in that. That's an easy example. And so you can analyze those behaviors. Most people might say they know who they serve, but a popular report that we'll generate is actually like a persona report. And they might come to us. We just worked with a team in Florida, and they brand themselves to work with a specific group of the veterans community. And so that's who they really nailed down and were really drilling down towards. But in reality, when you look at their transactions, wasn't the case. They're targeting a more affluent ecosystem of individuals, and a very small percentage of people were using VA loans or were actually in the military. So they were attracting different consumers. And so their cost per lead was way up because they're targeting the wrong audience. And so look at that too. You should, all of the data that we're running through your system should be leveraged in one way or another. We've heard a lot, right? Follow-up boss, for those that are follow-up boss users, of like, look at their updates with now Zillow. And that's good and bad, right? I think, well, there's two frames of thoughts there. It's like the good is that they're going to help you theoretically, giving you better access to data and information. But there's also another side of that as well that could impact the value of your business over time if you're really dependent upon that partner as well. So, yeah, that is a longer form answer of saying, like, look at what you already have at your disposal.
I've got a question for you about two things. One, when we're enriching the data through Agent Legend, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what you guys are doing. You guys are giving us all these different points, making them viable leads. Do you also give data about stuff they're buying? Like, because you just made me think, like, if I'm going to Amazon and I'm buying like pens and journals, it's going to be like, you should also buy this journal, right? It knows what I like. But if we're going to our clients and we're more along the lines of we're building relationships and we want to connect with them by handwritten notes and gifting stuff, pop buys. Do we have that data as well in there, the stuff that they like to buy at different places, or is that not data that you enrich with? Just a random thought.
We've seen a number of different use cases because we serve real estate, mortgage, and then home services as well. And so there's different enriched data points that our customers want. But like, we have 1,600 unique data points that we're going out and we're buying, right? So we buy our data. So it's a lot. And so to make it actionable, we have to distill it down into the most common is, and we see this a lot, is you get a lot of activity generated through your database, and filtering through the noise is very difficult because, again, time and money to filter through the noise. I either have to, if I have a growing database, I'm either investing in tech tools to help me automate some of the communications to those individuals. We're one of them. But even that can be tough to do. It's inefficient to a certain extent. And the other is I have to hire maybe staff to, hey, work this smart list that is ever growing and it never gets lower because we're just generating so much activity. You need to distill down who's a tire kicker and who's not. That is the number one use case for how people view our add-on to your database. So we provide a database manager. She is a fraction of the cost of what it would take to hire like a virtual assistant or even a full-time staffer on your team. And she's AI powered, big data powered. And so her job is to filter through the noise, find intent. Done. That's the first use case. The rest of the use cases could be stuff as simple as like, do you know the birthdays of your contacts? Think about real estate, like where we love bomb on people. So we go to birthdays. Do you know who's of your list of 100,000 contacts, who's a first-time home buyer, who's a move-up buyer, who's a downsizer, who's an investor? So think about creating smarter segments. And so that's the data layer that then dictates what I do with it next. So now you add on your next tech tool. It could be all of the vendors that I see in your ecosystem that are really powerful, but now you can create even more personalization around how you're talking to them, Tristan. So that example of the pens and whatnot, it's like, well, then how we view it is if I were to send out a notice and maybe it's inventory about a zip code because they registered on my IDX website. Well, I can even now go a layer deeper to make sure that when I send out inventory via automated emails, that I'm sending the applicable inventory of price points and maybe the hero image of who's on there. If it's a first time home buyer, maybe it's a millennial couple with a dog, right? That's what the biggest brands do really, really well. And now it's available to us. So if you can get smarter in how you execute versus just throwing money at the problem, but you don't actually know what the problem is, you're just burning a lot of that cash. So you need to have that data strategy and that data layer. And so that's really where our team is dedicated. The focus is as you bring this full circle of like what most of your people know Agent Legend is, communications
Mhm.
platform, right? Communications. We know how to communicate. But because rising costs of messaging, you got to get smarter about who you're reaching out to. So now think about bringing
Yeah.
a rifle approach to that versus a shotgun approach. And so you're getting equal or even better results, reaching the right people, right message, right time. And then all those other data points that you mentioned, like we can add them. It's just about why, right? Why are we enriching certain data points?
I guess if
Data
they're
enrichment.
like, if I'm building out a relationship-based company, right? My team, and we're all reaching out to people, past clients. And if I have the information on each one of those, because now you've given me their birthdays, and you're like, oh, here are 3 suggestions based on all the data we know of the things you should be gifting them, right?
Yeah,
Like that
exactly.
becomes extremely
That's a
powerful.
cool
So,
idea.
right, where Steve, where do we start? Like if we're gonna go into Agent Legend and we have a database, what should we expect to happen?
Yeah. So think about the database manager. The first thing is going to be we'll do a complementary database analysis. We'll show you the health of the database. A lot of people like we clean up a lot of the missing or incomplete information. That's contact records. It's name, phone, email, address if you don't have it. So we start there, and then we get to work on the segmentation of things, and then it's the so what, like what do we do? So then our system will start prompting you as a user. So think proactive outreach around like the wins that you have. I'll go back to the analogy of like hamster on a wheel. We as real estate professionals, we're doing 75 different things. Our job is to be that database manager to identify ways to turn a win into multiple wins by leveraging your database. And so what I mean by that is a good example is if you just got a listing, we will automatically ping you with 5 other, 10 other, 50 other prospects that are already in your database that are within a geographical radius of that new listing, for example.
Mhm.
And we'll say, click a button and go talk to those people. And it takes you minutes versus I got to go
Dude,
and remember to do this or I have to assign it to somebody else. Our system will take over and help you do that. And then guess what? Our communications platform takes that, but it's all derived in that data. And so think about your relationship with your CRM. That's the first thing. We want to make sure that you are getting equal benefit to all of that information that you're pumping through there. I will refer to all of the tech tools that we invest in. Like we are friends with the Fellow, Rooster, Real Scout, these great engagement and activity generation companies. Now it is let's harvest that information. Let's not give it away. Let's make sure that you're using all those rich data and insights to help systematize, make your day to day more predictable. Transferability is so big. And then as you grow, how do I make sure that as my database grows or as my revenue increases, that my expenses don't have to increase in line with that? We want to make sure that you unlock margin because scale is great, but I've seen a lot of companies crumble because they grew too quickly and they're just overhead. They're so heavily weighted. And so, especially now, you see so many boomers exiting the industry and you see a new
yep.
regime of agents. You can either go and build on your own or heck, let's go out and acquire really good businesses and inject them into a systematized process. But it all goes back into the boring stuff like our stuff is boring. Like data for those geeks that are out there that love to look at it and love to really analyze some of that information. Great, would love to connect with you. But at the end of the day, most of our clients are like, Just tell me how this is going to turn $1 into 3 and then prove it. And so the attribution, well, guess what? We're a database business. We can make sure that we're measuring to help you out as well. So that just makes like the equation of like I put $1 in, get $3 out. And that goes with lead vendors. It goes with agents that you're attracting. You know the cost of hiring a bad agent. Like, great, let's figure that out. I'll go back to it. All starts with your data that you have. And that's
I think that, agents are turned off by data because they don't, first of all, they don't know how to read it and then put it into their business. Like that's why Tristan and I love look, no matter what you think of NAR is besides the point, but when their data is great, right? Their buyer and seller profiles are so in depth. And if you take that and put it into your business, you'll have such better conversations with people. And you have agents who are like, well, I don't see that happening in my market. Okay, great. That's fine. Like it might not be happening in your market, but it's happening in a lot of markets. But look at the data, see what it's telling you, and have conversations around that. That's what it's there for. It's to help you have better conversations at the end of the day.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. It's something that we're seeing more momentum as more people they're seeing the writing on the wall with whether it's the consolidation that's taking place. You see acquisitions taking place all over. And most of us kind of live in our own, we're just heads down working on our own business. And we're just beating the drum on making sure that there's awareness around this concept. And then for those that are in growth mode, or maybe you're winding down and you're looking at the next chapter is like, this is how you unlock a better exit strategy as well. And so we are very mindful of it. And so, like I mentioned, the 4.5 million leads under management, we're really at the kind of the beginning stages of where this leads us. Now think about the data and analysis that we'll be producing, and we're producing more of those resources to our customers as well around like, do you want to know the difference between a Zillow lead and a realtor.com lead? And I have a non-biased opinion of what that looks like across the nation. And we can drill down into certain geographies. That's the power of really where we want and the types of people that we want to make sure that we're assisting as well. So it's been fun to see the application within this vertical because it really hasn't been over the years. So
I just want to give you an example of how you can use data, right? So for example, there's a company I work with, and Tristan works with them too, that helps us with our YouTube videos for real estate. And they come up with all the topics and all that stuff. And one of the topics was about people moving from Texas to Michigan. And it was a video all about that. And I'm like, and I asked them, I go, what's the deal with this? Like, why would I make a video just about people moving from Texas to Michigan? And they said, well, our research shows that about 10,000 people in 2024 moved from Texas to Michigan. So we think, and the searches on YouTube are very high. So that also is why we're making this video. And I just met with a YouTube lead last weekend. They weren't moving from Texas to Michigan. They're moving from California to Michigan, similar weather, right? But he said that video was the video that led him to me because he could relate to moving from a state like California to Michigan. And that's data. Using that data, if you can figure out something along those lines having to do with your area, make a video about it, people are going to find you.
Heck yeah. I love that. And the key there, Nick, is like that data was complex, cumbersome, or expensive to get your hands on before, but now it's
oh my god,
that's how we've been able to.
I just went on ChatGPT. How many people moved from Texas to Michigan?
Boom.
Or you can just ask ChatGPT where are people moving from to move to my location.
Dude, I love it. You made me think of so many different things that I hadn't thought of before. This is why I love talking to you. This may be a separate conversation outside of the webinar, but have you guys thought about doing this, how you're enriching data for real estate agents, like inside of our CRMs, but doing it for recruiting? Like for I just opened up a brokerage, right? At Y Realty, and we're in California, Illinois, Wisconsin. but we're heading into Florida next, and I want to grow in California. Like, can you help me enrich the data so that I know, well, who's thinking of making a move based on all the data points that you have? Like
Yeah.
that's a whole different product that you could sell, but I want to test it first.
Yeah, the how we do it, we're already working with teams like that are doing just that. The key is that first, before you go and like recruit, you got to understand who you serve. So I'll go back to that example I
Yeah.
used, right? If you know in your database, let's say you have 100,000 contacts, let's say 50% of them are actually downsizers. Use that information, right? That's a certain profile. Age, let's just say downsizers are typically 40 to 50 years old and income range of 250,000. That should dictate when I go into whether it is in your ad spend. If you're doing Facebook ads, hey, we are looking for awesome agents that know how to serve this group of prospects, because now you know not only are you getting a rock star, but now you know they can help you with I got this pool of opportunity here. And if you know how to sell to them, I want that sales agent versus just getting headcount for headcount purposes. So
Mm.
we're right now it's B2C, like business to consumer. So we're buying the consumer level data. So we start with, let's look at who you serve. And now let's use that when I'm looking at, when we're talking to some of the great recruiting vendors that are out there, they're looking at first party data, transactions, who doesn't have any pending transactions, some of those metrics, performance-based metrics, that can be informed in your prospect strategy. But you get to now say, you come to the table with, we know who we're looking for. And now you can say, I have more specificity around how we're doing it. That's how we've applied it. And, we're still in the measurement phase of how does that actually correlate with results and getting the right headcount in place, because early days and attribution are reliant upon the customers to provide that information to us.
Perfect, man. I'm just sending a text so I remember to message you later on
Done.
that. Everybody check this out. Scan that, run your database, see what your opportunities are, enrich it. I think all of a sudden we're seeing a different picture now that we understand more what data really means and how easy it is to grab information now and fully understand who we're dealing with. That just simplifies it for me. And I'm like, I wish I lived here 20 years ago when I was getting started in this business. So
Yeah.
thanks for
That
doing this.
QR, the car that will take you to just a calendar, but ask us questions. I mean, on our website, come and ask questions. And we'll tell you whether we're a good fit for what you're looking for, but take us up on a free database analysis. It's no skin off your back, and we'll do what we can to help anyone within the community out, Tristan and Nick. So always appreciate the conversations, and looking forward to the next one.